Why, hello there, everybody, gargoyles and ghouls. Now, today I'm going to try something a little bit more different. I've never done a podcast before, but I thought, let's do one in the spirit of Halloween. So, if you like spooky stories, and if you like spooky stories that are true, well, then in that case, why don't you pull up a nice beverage, turn off the lights if you dare, and listen to my tales. Tales of terror. Now, a lot of spooky things happen around Halloween, so I'll tell you something that happened to me October, a couple of years back. I was in the scare industry, as you may know if you know me well. And scare industry is I was a scare actor, going from place to place, scaring the living daylights out of people for a wage. That's right, it's a real job. But this fine Halloween, I thought I'd try something a little bit different. I went to Howl-O-Scream, the York Scare Maze, and to do this, it was quite a way for me. It took 2 trains. I had to transfer it at Sheffield quite a few times, or even in Leeds to get there. So, during this time, there was a train strikes, and we all hear this horrible word that's called replacement bus. That's right. So, why didn't I stay in York? Well, it was one day I had off until I had to get all of my stuff and then go live in, York for a couple of weeks. So I had to make sure I was back. So I did my training, had to get this last train at 11 o'clock, and that took me to, Retford Station. So the whole time I was like, right, I've got to make it back. I've got to make it back or else I'm not going to get my supplies. I'm going to have no food, no clothes for a couple of weeks. So I've got to make this. Got to make this train. Got to make this replacement bus. I've hardly ever been in this area. What's the worst that could happen? So my friend Callum and Amy, they dropped me off at the train station, said their goodbyes to me, which could have been, in all fairness, the last time anyone might have seen me. Because when I got on this train, it was manic, okay? I was trying to ask the train driver, I was like, oh, I need to come by with the tickets, don't they? And I'm like, is this the right train? Am I on the right train? And he had no time for me. He's like, I haven't got time, mate, I haven't got time. I'm like, can you just please just tell me if I'm going to get here for this replacement bus? And then the guy would not give me the time of day. A few more people were getting on and off, at the next couple of stations. And then I could see that there was going to get one from Doncaster, and then Doncaster to Retford. So I had to get off at Doncaster, and then I looked and I seen, oh, on my app it says the Sheffield train. Then it goes Sheffield to Nottingham. And I was like, I reckon I can make that. But then I heard on the interval, it's a ding ding, attention passengers. We are waiting for the Sheffield train to leave so we can dock up. And I was like, oh no. So if I would have got that train, it would have been a lot more easier for me. But no, I got off in Doncaster, waited for the train, and I realised I was the only one really getting off at this station. And I was like, that's pretty interesting. And then so the next train come to Retford, so I got on that one. I was the only one on the train. And I was like, okay, and it was the next stop. So I got off and thought, well, I'll do what I can. It's a couple of minutes, it's like half an hour until the next train. So I was like, I'll get a drink at the next station. But obviously everything's shut around this time. It's getting 11:30 at night. And I'm like, right. So the train pulled into Retford Station. And I thought, this is really interesting. It's a really long station. Looks like old architecture, but with new modern doors. And I thought, how bizarre. And the guy came with a high-vis, and it was red. I've never seen a red high-vis before. Normally they're all yellow or green. And I was like, this guy must be the Biz, or maybe it's a region thing. So I spoke to him. And I said to him, right, I need to exchange now. So I looked at it, Retford to, I think it was Wattle. And I was like, what is Wattle? I've never heard of this before. And the guy said, oh, yeah, you need the train station, the old one. And I said, the old train station? And he pointed to a long bridge. And he said, it's about a 2-minute walk over this bridge. And it'll take you to the old train station. He says, just wait there on the platform, and then that's where it'll be. And I said, this replacement bus is going to be here though, right, mate? Because I'm getting further and further away from, civilization. He just looked at me and said, if it says it's going to be there, mate, it's going to be there. That's all we can do. He says, well, I'm going to have to, lock up. And I said, lock up? And said, yeah. And I could see all the lights on the train station were slowly going out. So I walked across this 2-minute bridge, looking back, and I could see the train station just disappearing into the dark as the lights turned off one by one. And I thought, that's quite peculiar. But oh well, press on. So I came to the end of the bridge and there was a lift. The train station looked a little bit like a prison, I'm not gonna lie. It had like barbed wire, bits of old broken like stone, and I thought, oh, pretty interesting. Then as soon as I stepped onto the end of the bridge, the lift opened, and it was like 3 meters away from me, and I said that kind of looked like it was waiting for me. And I said, I'm not going to get in that lift, I'm going to take the stairs, because if anything happens to that lift and I got stuck in it, it's an old looking lift, then I won't be there till the morning. So I was like, right. So I took the stairs, walked down, I was like, yep. And then the train station was dead, not another living person, not even at the old train station, which I had to walk to. So I looked over this wall, and I could see houses in the distance. There was no lights on in the houses, and I thought, this is like a weird backdrop. And I squinted my eyes as it got darker, and I could see like a little light flickering on the field. And I was like, someone's lit a fire. How odd's that? It's like a fire in the middle of the grass. And then I was like, what do I do? Should I tell someone? I was like, who can I tell? Do I call it? Do I report there's a fire, like just randomly burning? Is someone doing a bonfire? Is it a farmer, like destroying his like wood or something like that? I don't know. And then I looked behind me, and then the guy was there in the red viz, and I was like, "You right, mate?" And he's like, "Yeah, you're the last person on the station, so as soon as you're gone, I'm going to close for the night." And I was like, that is such a weird sentence. I never thought I'd hear that in my life. So I said to him, look out here, mate. Just look over this wall, and you tell me, can you see that fire in the middle of the field? And he looked. He was like, oh yeah. Well, here's your train. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to address the fire. That's a bit weird. And I looked, and then the train pulled in, and it was like a really rickety, like one-carriage train. It's like, ing, 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 making a noise as it come up. And I'm like, that is weird. I was like, do I get on this train? It looks a bit run down. I don't think it's going to make it to my next couple of stops. I looked, and it was like 40 minutes to the next train station. And I was like, okay, so that's the detour. And I was like, the bus is meant to be here at like 2 a.m. as well. So I was like, okay, this is even more like worrying. I was like, what am I going to do? So I waited, and the train pulled in, finally got to my platform, like all slowly drifted towards me. And I turned and got on the train, waved to the conductor. He's there looking at his watch, like waved for me to get on the train. And then so I went on, watched him out the window, waved again, nothing. And then as the train pulled away from the station, all the lights around him went off. And he was just waiting there in the dark. And then just disappeared from my vision. And I was like, that is so weird. I was like, Retford train station is so weird. And I was like, oh, I have to tell a story about this to my friends when I get back. So I sat on this train, looking round yet again. I was the only one on this train. And I was like, oh dear, I really hope this bus turns up, because I don't know where I am right now. And then I heard like an older voice just say to me, tickets please. And I turned around, and then there was this woman with her hair in a bun. She had really long fingernails. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to lie. It's Halloween. It's a stereotypical, like, kind of like witch. She was a lovely lady, a really lovely lady, but it didn't help to my my way of thinking at the minute, because I was kind of in a little bit of like, okay, something's kind of going wrong right now. So I said to her, oh yeah, I've got my ticket. It's on my phone. And she went, oh, a modern one. And then pulled out this really old, like, bricky device, and she was trying to, like, scan the ticket with it. And I was like, oh, God, bless you. And I said to her, I'm trying to get this replacement bus. I'm going to Nottingham. And she was like, oh, okay, then, let's have a look. And she sat next to me on the train, which was quite lovely. I was budged up a bit to let her on. And then she says, okay, then, you want to go to the left side of the station, or else it might drive by. I was like, oh dear, okay, I'll make sure I won't do that. And she goes, but it'll be there. And I said, it's definitely there. She goes, if it's meant to be there, it will be there. She goes, well, here's your stop. And I looked up, and I was like, what? There's no way 40 minutes had just gone by like that. I talked to her for like maybe 2 minutes. But then that's it, that's where it was. The time was right on my phone, right on the clock there's actually a clock on the train, just to add to the story. So I got off. There was newspapers all over the train station. Everything was all run down. And I was like, okay. So I turned back and I waved to her, and she's there at the back of the train waving to me. And then I went forward down the steps, and I said to her, the left, right? And I turned, and the train was gone. I didn't even hear it go. It was quiet. It was so loud coming into the station, but going out of it just disappeared. I might have just seen a flicker of light as it left and went back the way it came. And I was at the terminus, the end of the line here on this station. There was no more after this. I was like, what? There was a little wall where the train track ended. And I was like, okay. So I went through the town. I was like, there's got to be something. I've got 20 minutes to wait until this bus turns up. And all the buildings were closed. There was no lights on the windows. I didn't see any car or anything like that, like driving by. It was like just my street lamp that was on near the train station. So I started walking around the station to have a little look at the architecture to kill time. And it was like an old, beautiful design. And I could see where people probably would have been going in to look into the train station. But then I was like, okay. So I sat and waited on this wall, hoping that this replacement bus would turn up in this rundown, quiet town. So yeah, it finally got to, it was about like 2 a.m. and I was like, okay, this bus is not turning up. On my phone there's no signal, I can't contact anybody. Of course that happens, doesn't it, when you need it the most, like Vodafone goes down, or Free O2. So I was like, okay, I can't call anybody. And I was like, I am literally going to have to put these newspapers, make a bed, and sleep here until the morning, and hope I can get a train back. And then just, don't know what I'll do from there. Then around this time as well, I had, almost no money as well, because obviously acting gets you nowhere. It's sad to say, you got to really push for it. But then, throughout this quiet town, I heard a noise. I was like, that sounds like an engine. And I could hear the bus driving around the town. It was so quiet until eventually it pulled into the train station. I seen it go around the corner. I was like, oh, finally, a bus. And then it pulled up, and then I ran after it because it wasn't on the left side, it was on the right side. I was like, damn it. I knew something would go wrong. So I ran to this bus quick. And I said to the guy, I was like, right, mate, it was quite dark as well in the car park, and I said to him, I need to get to Nottingham. Is this the replacement bus? And this is what he said. He went, and I was like, is that a yes? And he went, so I was like, okay. So I went and sat down on this bus, looking around, no one on it, and I was like, well, I'm used to this at the minute. I'll go, when he puts the lights on the bus, I'll read my manga and then have my hour-and-a-half journey to 2 hours back to Nottingham. I was like, oh, no problem. And then I seen him eating something. It looked like I don't know what it was. I just glanced, and he pulled out a carrier bag, had this big thing. It would fit in both hands. I don't know if it was a giant watermelon or something he was eating. And I thought, oh well, who am I to judge? It's probably a farmer or something like that, or he's taking over the replacement bus service. So I didn't really get a good look at him. So I just sat there. And then he put the engine back on and then kind of started to drive, but he didn't turn the lights on. And I thought, why isn't the lights on? Why is he not putting them on? And I was like, does he not have them on at a certain time? It's like a night bus from Harry Potter or something like that. So then he drove out of the town into the countryside, and it was pitch black, completely black. I could only see the lights from the front of the bus. That's how dark it was. And then looking behind me, I'm like, this is so weird. And I was like, well, I can't I've got my phone's almost dying. I'm trying to save it for the most emergency, and I'm like, I'm trying to send messages to my friends guys, I think I've got on the wrong bus. I can't understand what the guy was saying. It's pitch black. This is me on the bus. I'm taking screenshots and sending them to my friends, and then trying to get a signal, but obviously there isn't any, and I'm like, oh dear God, what am I gonna do? So I just sat there and waited, and it must have been me and him for a good little while. Then I could see a little lamp in the middle of a hill that was driving to, that had a bench. So that was clearly a bus stop near a farm or something. So he pulled up, and then he just kicked the door, and then hobbled off the bus, and ran by the window. And I was like, what the hell? So I looked out I tried to look at the window, press my face against it, and I could see the rear lights, at the back, and I could see a silhouette of him just kind of twitching a bit and reaching for something. And I think he pulled out a pipe and had a bit of a cigarette. And I was just like, what? So I tried to get my phone quick. And so then he hobbled back in, and I'm trying to get my camera up. I was like, please, please, please. And then like I just got him like really slowly climbing into the bus. And I was like, such a weird thing. Like, what is this? Like, and then I looked in the mirror. I was like, what? I was like, did I see something then? Like, what? His face looked a little bit well, a bit like deformed, really. Like, and I was like, so I when he obviously got back in and shut the door, and then carried on driving, I looked on my phone to see what was what, and then I played back the video like 3 times, and I could swear that like he looked green. See, I'm colourblind, okay, so that does not help, I know, in the situation, but his face looked a bit green. And I was like, tried to zoom in on it, and his nose was like half the size of his face, and I'm like, this doesn't look human. I was like, so I didn't want to like judge, and I was like, well, what? And then I was like, oh, never mind, I just save it just in case. I'm trying to send it to my friend, like, okay, this is like the last video that I'm sending, just in case something goes wrong, because this guy, I think he's driving me to the middle of nowhere, and he's gonna ask me to get out, or he's gonna kill me or something like that. I don't know, it's like such a weird thing. Like, there's no communication here whatsoever. I honestly thought it was an induction from Howl-O-Scream, and I thought they sent me on this like train ride home just so they could like prank me, and because they took Halloween very seriously, which was amazing. So I thought, this is it, it's got to be a prank. And I'm looking around for cameras, and I'm like, we're not about to record in this unless they had night vision. I'm like, what is going on? So I just sat there looking at the mirror, trying to see if I can get another glance at his face. And then he drove back into the dark, and I must have been there staring for like a good 10-15 minutes. And then he came to like another bus stop. So he stopped, opened the door, and I got my phone ready. But then he just leaned over the window and then looked down like the corridor of the bus. But I thought he's looking at me. Does he want me to get off? I'm like, this ain't Nottingham. And I was like, crap. So I got my phone ready, just about to press record again. And then I felt the seat shake. I was like, what was that? And then I just watched with his head just move along, looking at the door of the bus. And then he closed the doors to the bus, and then just went, and then carried on driving. And I was like, what? What? So my eyes were still at the front, and then it started to rain. It was chucking it down outside. You couldn't see anything. I mean, you could just see the raindrops like reflecting off the light as he was driving down this fucking country lane. And then, yeah, he pulled up to what I could assume was some sort of factory gate. And then I seen 2 people, like a silhouette of them 2, like standing outside. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. I was like, it's actually a living soul. So I was like, thank God for that. So he pulled up to let him on. And they both like walked on the bus wearing raincoats with the hoods up. Then they started talking to each other. This is what I heard. And then one of them ran onto the bus, looked at me, put his hood up, and then ran straight by me quicker. And I was like, what? And then the other one come on, like counting his change from the bus after just paying to get on. Then he looked at me and went, dark, isn't it? And then walked by me. And they both like sat maybe like on the other side of the bus, like 4 rows behind me. And I could just hear them both like having a weird conversation. The other one was like saying, when we go to work, we're going to work. And then when we get the job, we'll do the job. And that's how we're going to work. And the other one's like, yeah. And then they were having like just this really weird conversation. It was just like weird words, you know, like just very simple. Then the bus like pulled up to the field, another field. And they both got off. And like, night! And then like obviously went into the bus. I don't know where they were going. Like you couldn't see any buildings like anywhere. It was just too dark, so I couldn't differentiate where they were. And he closed the doors and then carried on driving. And then for this like last hour, it was just me and him on the bus, like me and the bus driver. And then, yeah, I was like, okay, maybe this isn't a joke. Maybe this is just like, maybe I'm overreacting a bit. And I was like, this seems a bit weird of a situation. Then I could see like a street sign, like of like one of the bulletins, you like to drive like speed limit, and it said like to Chesterfield. I was like, oh, I was like, that's a name. We're near civilization. I was like, this is great. And then he pulled like into like, it looked like I don't know if it's like a school kind of gateway, and it's like he pulled up to a bus stop. Then he kicked the door again and then ran off into the dark. And I'm like, right, okay, when he comes back, I've got him. I've got my phone ready, my fingers on the record button. And I was there on the bus on my own in the dark for 15 minutes. And then I seen a guy come wearing a bus driver blazer and like some uniform with like a case. And he came and just walked onto the bus, turned on the lights, and then revved the engine up and then did his checks and then just drove. And I was like, okay. And I'm looking around. It's the first time I've seen this bus light. And it's got really old advertisements, like the old like seats, you know, not the leathery ones. It's just like the old fabric seats, like they're almost tartan patterned. And all the posters, like, we're having really old, like, 90s advertisements. Like, there's one of that saying, like, symptoms of a stroke. And believe me, I thought I had one at this point because of how weird the night was. And then he pulled up outside, like, another school in a car park. And so I went up to him and I was like, mate, I've had a bit of a weird night. And I was like, can you tell me if this bus is going to Nottingham? And he's like, yeah, we're just pulling to Chester first. It's going to be like another hour and a half there. And I was like, mate, just take your time. I'm just nice to have some conversation. And he's like, what do you mean by that? And I was like, I said, the guy that was on here said he wanted the most, like, conversationalist to tell you. And he's like, oh, okay. He goes, well, I don't know much about that. He says, because every time I get this bus, it's always empty. And I was like, yeah, okay then. And he said to him, and I remembered, I was like, hang on. I was like, he was eating something out of a carrier bag, and I was like, where is, like, the remains of that? Like, where's the carrier bag? I didn't see the bus driver go, oh, for crying out loud, Jeff, and then bin the guy's bag. So I don't remember him running off with it into the dark, so who knows, maybe he just ate the whole thing. So next, like, hour and a half it was a normal bus ride. So I read my manga, and then as soon as I got to Chesterfield, the signal on my phone came back, and I was like, oh, and then all my messages were coming through. My mates were replying saying, like, Tom, I don't think you should be on that bus. You can't see anything, it's pitch black. And I was like, yeah. And then I rang my girl as well, and as soon as I got off the bus, it dropped me off at Nottingham train station. And I just got off, and then he turned around on the spot and drove back down to where he was going. And I was just like, I was shivering. I tell you, I was so cold. I know I've been so cold in my life. And I was ringing Cameron up, and I said, baby, I said, you won't believe what happened to me. I said, like, I told her the whole story. I was like, I'm so cold, you're not going to believe it. And I've got videos, I've got proof. And she's like, what? I said, just run me a bath, I'm going to get a taxi home. And then I got into the taxi, and then the guy asked me if I was all right, and I was like, yeah. So I told him the story, and he's like, mate, that is weird, mate. And I showed him the video, and he's like, I won't believe it until you showed me. So the guy was green in the video. I don't know if you can tell from what I had. It's better on my phone, but when you send it loses quality, doesn't it? So it's just one of those things. So, and that is my experience of getting a replacement bus. That is my first horror story of the night. So you tell me. Was it all in my head? Was I being pranked? Would you have got on the bus? Would you have stayed in York instead of trying to risk the journey? Which I probably wish I did, but then I wouldn't have this story. I'll tell you, a lot of people do question if it's like real or not. And then even after seeing the video, they're just like, well, it could just be some ordinary like northern man or whatever it was. As it said to me. I was like, okay. I didn't mean to be judgmental, but it's Halloween, all right? It's October. I mean, if you can't be scared, this is when, like, apparently goblins get jobs, So story number 2. Now ask yourself, have you ever been alone? I mean, really alone. Well, this is what happened to me in my own home, of all places. Like, so at the time, I lived in a flat, and it was obviously quite well, like, blocked off, you know what I mean? So there's only one way in, one way out. I was pretty high up, so there's no windows you could really climb in and out of. And before we moved here, we was in Noble in Clifton. I don't know if you ever know where that is. But it's not like the safest area, you know what I mean? And a lot of weird things do happen down there, to be fair. And I remember waking up and looking out the window and seeing dogs looking at the house, and you always heard like footsteps creaking on a landing. Like, place was haunted, you know what I mean? Like, loads of weird things falling and noise. I wake up in the night and see people staring at me, you know what I mean? Night terrors. So it wasn't like the most pleasantest of environments to be sleeping in, let me tell you that one. But this one was weird. So in my uni days, I used to obviously spend a lot of time like watching a lot of animations, anime, cartoons, playing games till late into the night. Had great social life with my friends, just chatting to them online and playing on Xbox Live. That's right, Xbox Live, and I'm not old. So yeah, but I thought to myself, I'll have a nice like quiet night, and around 3 in the morning, I'm still watching Adventure Time, and then I heard like a twist at the door. And sometimes we do see things in the flat, like, you know what I mean? Like, we do things like cats running around and we hear like footsteps. And it's like, everywhere I go, I swear, there's always some sort of haunting. But sometimes at night, you hear the door like trying to be unlocked from obviously my side of the flat. So you have to go and turn the latch back to be unlocked. It's just one of those things, and you're used to it. So it happened at 3 in the morning, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's a bit later than usual. So I paused Adventure Time, put my phone on the pillow, and then I started walking to the landing. And I went to the door, and I just turned the latch back to being locked. Looked through the peephole, nothing there, just in case. Felt a bit louder than normal. Then I walked back into the bedroom, checked the time, and yeah, my phone was gone. And I was like, oh crap, where's my phone? And I'm not gonna lie, I'm in my underwear at this point, so I'd had no pockets. So I'm like this, I kind of tiptoed around, looked through the hallway, called out, I was like, hello? I was like, hello? And I was like, right. So I grabbed my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles nunchucks, as you do, because I'm a big geek. And so I started like looking around the house. And I was like, okay, room 1, room 2, nothing's there. Just in the bathroom. And I was like, I think I would have heard somebody surely. And then I was like, did I leave it on the door? So like, because we had like a shoe rack, so I thought maybe I would have put it on there. So I went back to the shoe rack, and the phone was not there. So I went back into the hallway, and in the middle of the hallway, placed in the centre, was my phone. And I was like, oh crap. I was like, someone's in this flat with me. So I grabbed the phone, turned off all the lights, and I literally just hid in the corner, and I was quiet. I was listening for breathing, listening for a step, and I was like, anything. So I was there for like a minute and a half, and I was like, come on, someone make some noise. Everybody gives off at least a little bit of noise. I was like there in pitch black. I was like, right, I can see in the dark, so if anyone's like got me, I know I can get some before they get me. And then nothing. So I called my friend Chris, and I was like, Chris, and he's like, hello, like, it's a bit late, are you alright? I was like, yeah. I said, I think someone might have broke into the flat. And he's like, what do you mean? And I told him the story. I was like, I heard the door being unlocked, and then when I come back, my phone was gone, so I went looking around, and I saw the phone in the middle of the floor, and he's like, do you put it on the floor? I was like, no. I said, why would I have put the phone in the middle of the floor? And I was like, come on, it was strategically placed. And he was like, all right. And I said, if this phone call cuts, you need to call the police. So I gave him my address, and he's like, all right, okay, then stay on the phone with me. So I'm checking every room, every nook and cranny. I'm looking under every bed, I'm looking under every cupboard, I'm looking inside like crawl spaces and that. Like literally I'm near, light off, light on, you know what I mean? I'm retracing my steps constantly so no one could sneak by me. I'm checking every room, hiding in the bathtub, behind the shower curtain, every cupboard, every utility thing, and then even in the toilet bowl, you know what I mean? I was that thorough. And I said to him, I was like, I'm not seeing anything yet. Looking in the living room, looking behind the sofas, behind the curtains, looking outside in case someone's like freaking scaling the building. All the windows were shut. And I was just like, they're all in lock mode. I'm like, how has they got in? Like, you know what I mean? They must have ran out. You know what I mean? I used my phone as a distraction. So I'm looking in the corridors, and like down the end of the corridor, you see there's a hallway doors, and I'm like the only one on the floor. So it's like, okay, I would have seen if the doors were like being closed, and it all echoes as well. You can hear people coming up the stairs if there is anybody coming up the stairs. And I'm like, right, okay, I'm not hearing anybody. And I said to Ryan, we could go check the kitchen. And as soon as I went into the kitchen, I looked around the corner, nothing there. I looked at the mirror, because we put the mirror in the kitchen. And I was like, okay. So I went near the mirror, then I felt something just go straight through me. And then my signal on my phone just disappeared. I was like, oh! So I'm like trying to call back Chris. I'm like, no, he's going to think something's gone wrong. I'm like, what's going on? Like, I can't call. And I'm like, no, trying to turn the phone on to reset like that. I'm looking. So I turn this mirror around just in case something went into the mirror. And it sounds really weird, I know. And then the signal finally come back, and then Chris is on the other end. He's like, Tom, and I'm like, Chris, I'm all right. And he's like, so what happened? And I'm like, I don't know, did the signal just cut? Like, I felt something go through me. And he goes, I heard a growl, Tom, And I'm like, what do you mean a growl? And he goes, yeah, I thought someone like attacked you or something, like a growl and a thud. And I'm like, okay. I was like, that's weird. I said to him, I think it's his mirror, Chris. And he's like, what do you mean it's a mirror? And I said, I think it's haunted, because I guess we didn't cover it up when we moved house. Like, we must still have some things trapped in the mirror, because we see cats running around and all sorts. I don't even own a cat, It's mental. And he's like, you need to get rid of that mirror. So I rang my dad back, and I'm like, Dad? And I said, like, this is what happened. And I told him, like, the whole story. And I said, did you cover the mirror up when we moved? He's like, why would I cover a mirror up when I moved? I was like, okay. So, yeah. And then every night for, like, the past, oh, God, like, about maybe a year and a half, I kept hearing that door unlock, I was like, it would never completely unlock, but it would always be on the last millimeter. And then sometimes I'd see like figures standing in the hallway. But every time that mirror was up, you'd always see something. But every time you put the mirror down, you would never see it. So I thought, if I get rid of this mirror, then it's going to be able to walk around the flat a bit more freely. So I was drawing like little protection charms above the door, making sure nothing got into the bedroom, because I was into stuff like that. I know it sounds crazy, but this happened, you know what I mean? Oh yeah. So that's one of my shorter stories, but that's what happened to me when I was home alone. So yeah, there's that saying, isn't there? Make sure you go to bed at 3 a.m, kids. Make sure you don't like stay past 3 a.m, because nothing good ever happens after 3 a.m. It's like the witching hour, innit? People used to say it was midnight, but nah, I think more weird things happen at 3 for me. I mean, it happens like all the places I like grew up in. I always get woke up around 3 in the morning with things staring at me, and yeah, it's a crazy world out there, innit? You never know what's actually beyond, It's like, are these all tricks of the mind? People say that you can't dream about people you've not seen as well, but it's all just very, very weird. And now this brings us to our third and final story of the night. So, how many of you have jobs where there is a ghost walking around? I mean, to be fair, actually, at the minute, my job at the moment has a ghost, but has anyone actually seen it or heard from it, experienced it? Well, I'll tell you about this one, kiddies. Once again, I was doing a Halloween event, and I was working at Alton Towers. I don't know if you've ever been there, like the big castle in the middle. This is like, a lot of people love Alton Towers. It's got a massive cult following, it's got a lore, it's got evil trees and the Baron as well, and the curse. But what if I told you if that was real? What I'd say to you is, if there was actually a haunting in the castle grounds at Alton Towers. Well, I've worked there, and so many others have as well. We all did the Scarefest thing, and yeah, time for me to tell you what really goes on when we're scaring. Now, a scare actor's job is to place themselves in a horror attraction and add to the atmosphere. So when people come in, we make them jump, scare them, tell them a bit of a story, give them the immersive experience they need and require this Halloween. But half the time, when I'm scaring about 10 to 15 people, running in between rooms, it's pitch black, they cannot see, but we're that accumulating to the light that we can see like them, because we know it like the back of our hands. So we know where people go, and we know where they will go if they did get lost. It's just, it happens. But half the time when you're scaring people, you may notice the group seems a bit short. That's because some have been trapped further back down, so you have to kind of clear them out a bit like a scary pipe. But sometimes when the group's too large, and there's still people knocking about inside the maze, so you go to like kind of round them up and make sure to go the right way. But when they go into dead ends, and when you pull back the curtain and they're not there, now that is something else entirely. because then you got yourself a ghost. And there's quite a few that wander around. There's like old maids, there's like the Baron himself, and apparently there's like children as well that run around those mazes, especially like ghost kids. It's crazy. But I'll tell you what happened to us. So one of my things I've seen is when I've scared people and then look to the end of the corridors, I can see people walking around the corner, just like looking at me. And then as you get closer, they're just not there. It's really weird. Like it plays like tricks on your mind. But no, it's actually a spirit. Because I've had it before where a lot of my like mates have come back on break and they're like, oh God, I've just seen this kid, like it fucking scared me. I looked at the corridor and I saw him standing there, and I'm like, oh yeah, so I've seen that as well. And about 20 others have. So it's all like word of like whispers and all that. But I was like, well, you ever tried talking to it? And I was like, are you mental, Tom? No, I've done it where I've scared a woman, I've ran. Like, she's ran into, like, a room and I've chased her, like, scaring her as you do, and then she's just disappeared as I've, like, almost touched her. And I'm like, what? And, like, as it missed. I'm like, that is weird. And then it's, like, death echoes, you know what I mean? She must have been murdered in cellars and whatnot. And then they built a scare maze over it. It's an old castle, a very old castle, and it's got a lot of history to it. Even more, like, living history, as you want to call it, with ghosts. So, one day I was like, well, I'll take the most haunted room, especially in the Altonville mines, and we call it the jar room. And you always see at the end of the mine shaft, there's a little boy that's crouched down and he watches you. Sometimes you can feel him staring at you, and it's like, okay. And you do panic because you think it's another group that's like got lost. You're like, oh, what are you doing here? But no, as soon as you go near him, same story, they just disappear into the dark. But one time, I must have walked up to where he crouched. I've seen him like maybe 300 times, like throughout the month, you know what I mean? He's always there. So I went to the corridor, turned around so I had my back to him in case he was nervous. And I said, little boy, my name is Tom, and I'm an actor. I scare people on Halloween to give them an experience. I won't hurt you, but if you are here, and I put my hand out, and I said to him, just grab my hand, just so I know that you're not scared. So I was waiting there for about 2 minutes, just with my hand out, as you do, just feeling the wind. Because one, I'm waiting for the next group to come along anyway. And then I just felt this tiny touch, and then it started to move its hand further upon my palm. It was a very cold touch, as you can probably imagine. So I looked back to see, and he was gone, as you can imagine, with my hairs on the back of my neck standing up, I tell you. But even though he disappeared, it did feel like something was still watching me. It was a lot more intense than what the kid was, to be fair, staring at me. So I don't know what that was. And then later on, as I was like scaring as well, I thought I saw him again. And I was like, okay, you know what I mean? It's just one of those things. So as you do, you try talking to him, and I thought, I might talk to some of the other ghosts. So I was in like the shower a bit, and scaring the next group. And I thought I saw a woman go behind the curtains. And I was like, okay, so I looked back, she's not there. So I closed the curtains, and I started talking. I was like, ma'am, I am Tom. I'm a scare actor. And I said, like, what I do, and before I could finish the sentence, I just heard a scream, like, ah! So I pulled the curtain back, and I seen her there for a split second, just screaming. Her jaw had been, like, dislocated, and I was like, oh, God. And then that was it. I've never seen him again after that. Good job, I tell you. My heart was, like, racing when I heard that. So anytime a ghost has really, like, made me jump. But it always, like, interrupts my scaring sometimes, because I'm just, like, when I run into people, and I see people panic, you kind of have to scare around them. But then when it turns out there's nobody there, and it's just a ghost, you do look quite crazy. But at least it adds to the atmosphere. But it's not just me that has had, like, hauntings at Alton Towers. There's quite a lot. In fact, I would say I don't know a single scare actor who hasn't seen a ghost at Alton Towers. So maybe that might be something to think about next time you go to these scare attractions. What's real? Who's an actor? And who could be deceased? But no, thanks guys for listening to my spooky tales. Hopefully you enjoyed them, and I hope I set the scene for Halloween. I do want to hear your lot's scary stories, so if you've got any, then please don't hesitate to tell me, because I would love to hear them. If you want to comment below and just tell me the gist of them, then yeah. And if you like this video, I might do some more around Halloween, because this is my first podcast I've ever done on this channel, and I did hope to do some more eventually with mates, get some scripts, do something a little bit more fun and entertaining. But yeah, so just listen to me talk about my ghostly goings on. So guys, have a great Halloween. So what's on there to do in Halloween this year? Well, we've got loads of scary attractions, and you've got loads of films to watch. Like, the cinemas released quite a few new ones which I want to try, like Good Boy as well, and then there's a lot more scary places I want to visit. I want enjoyment this year. Oh, and speaking of enjoyment, me and my brother put together a completely new original song. It might be a parody, or it might be my own workings out in a Halloween theme. But either way, I've got zombie scare actors, which are also my friends. I've got some really close friends I cannot wait to work with again. So I can't wait to see how this goes. So yeah, I will be putting that up soon. So yeah, keep an eye out. So yeah, happy Halloween.